Welcome to another episode of English Podcast.
Each session is a chance to practice, learn, and enjoy English naturally at your own pace.
Remember to subscribe and give us a like if you find it useful. Have you ever had one of those days where everything seems to go wrong in the kitchen? You know, the kind where you burn the toast, spill the coffee, and the pot boils over? Well, this story is about one of those days, but with a twist. It happened to a friend of mine, let's call him David, in his tiny apartment in the city.
Oh, I can definitely relate. Apartment kitchens can be tricky. There's never enough counter space, and sometimes the appliances have a mind of their own. So, what kind of culinary catastrophe did David create?
It all started with a simple plan, a romantic dinner for his girlfriend, Sarah. He decided to make lasagna, a dish he'd never attempted before. Ambitious, right? He pictured a cozy evening, soft music, delicious food. The reality, however, was different.
Lasagna is quite a challenging dish for a beginner. It involves lots of steps. Making the sauce, the bechamel, layering it all together. Ambitious is definitely the right word. I can already sense this is going to be a good story.
David's apartment was small, but he kept it tidy, usually. This particular evening, however, cookbooks were piled on the counter, pots and pans were everywhere. He was following a complicated recipe from his grandmother's old, handwritten cookbook. The pages were stained with, well, let's just say evidence of previous cooking adventures.
Ah, the classic handwritten recipe book. They can be treasures, passed down through generations. But sometimes, those recipes are a bit vague. They'll say things like, add a pinch of this, or cook until done. Not very helpful for a novice cook like David.
So, there I was, staring at this thing. It was supposed to be a lasagna, lovely, cheesy lasagna. But it looked more like volcanic rock. Black and bubbling, with strange smoke curling up towards the ceiling. The kitchen was filled with this acrid, burnt smell. Acrid, you know, it means a strong, unpleasant smell. Like burnt plastic, almost.
Oh, dear. I can almost smell it from here. I've definitely had kitchen disasters before. Not quite volcanic rock lasagna, though. So, what did you do? Did you try to salvage it? Salvage, that means to save or rescue something.
Salvage it? Ha! It was beyond salvaging. It was a lost cause. The cheese was this, charred crust, completely inedible. And the pasta sheets, well, let's just say they resembled brittle, black paper.
Oh, that's awful. It's so frustrating when you spend time preparing a meal, and it ends up like that. I bet you were pretty disappointed. Especially if you were hungry.
Disappointed? I was devastated. I'd spent the whole afternoon chopping vegetables, preparing the meat sauce, layering the pasta. I was so looking forward to a delicious, home-cooked meal. Instead, I had this culinary catastrophe staring back at me. Culinary, that means related to cooking.
So, what happened next? Did you just give up and order takeout? I know I would have been tempted. Takeout, that's when you order food from a restaurant to eat at home.
Well, for a moment, I just stood there, completely defeated. I was about to reach for my phone to order a pizza, but then, something happened. My girlfriend, Sarah, walked into the kitchen.
Oh, this is where it gets interesting. What was her reaction? Was she upset that dinner was ruined?
You know, I expected her to be annoyed, maybe even a little angry. But instead, she started giggling. At first, I was confused, then I started giggling too. The whole situation was just so absurd.
That's a good reaction. It's better to laugh than to cry, right? So, what did you do about dinner then?
So, to recap what's happened so far in our story, David, our main character, is trying to impress his girlfriend, Sarah, by cooking her a fancy Italian dinner. He's not a very experienced cook, though. Ambitious might be a good word to describe his menu, perhaps a little too ambitious.
Yes, and things haven't exactly gone according to plan, have they? The risotto, which was supposed to be creamy and delicious, ended up like sticky glue. Gluey. That's a good word to describe something with an unpleasant, sticky texture.
He also managed to burn the garlic bread, which filled the kitchen with smoke, making Sarah cough. Burned, or burnt, as it's also spelled, is the past tense of burn, meaning to damage something with fire.
And let's not forget the main course, the expensive steaks he bought. He overcooked them so much they were tough and chewy. Chewy means difficult to eat because it requires a lot of chewing.
Poor David. He's really stressed out because everything is going wrong. He wanted to create a romantic atmosphere, a beautiful evening, but it's turning into a disaster. Disaster, a sudden event that causes a lot of damage or suffering.
He's starting to panic, thinking that Sarah will be disappointed and maybe even think less of him. He sees this dinner as a total failure. Failure, lack of success.
But Sarah hasn't reacted the way he expected. She seems to be taking it all in stride. To take something in stride, it means to deal with a difficult situation calmly and without becoming upset.
Exactly. So, where we left off, David was staring at the ruined food, feeling completely defeated. Defeated, completely beaten or overcome.
So, there I was, staring at this culinary catastrophe. The kitchen was a disaster zone, flour everywhere, a broken whisk, and smoke still curling from the oven. My ambitious soufflé had deflated into a rubbery pancake. It was supposed to be a romantic dinner. Romantic was the last word that came to mind.
Oh dear, a deflated soufflé is a classic cooking disaster. I can practically picture the scene. And the smoke? That doesn't sound good. It must have been quite disheartening, especially when you were trying to create a special atmosphere.
Disheartening is an understatement. I felt utterly defeated, like I'd failed some kind of culinary exam. But then, Sarah just started giggling. At first, I was baffled, then I started laughing too. The whole situation was so absurd. Culinary, by the way, just means related to cooking.
That's a great word to know. And baffled means completely confused or puzzled. It's a good way to describe that feeling of not understanding what's happening. So, Sarah started laughing. That's a good sign. She obviously wasn't too bothered by the ruined dinner.
Exactly. Her laughter was infectious. Infectious means something spreads quickly from one person to another, like a yawn or, in this case, laughter. We laughed so hard, tears were streaming down our faces. It was a complete release of tension. The ruined soufflé didn't matter anymore.
So, the disaster became a moment of shared humor. That's lovely. Sometimes, embracing the unexpected can lead to even better memories. And release, in this context, means a letting go of something, like stress or anxiety. It's a good word to describe that feeling of relief.
It really was. And we salvaged the evening by ordering pizza. Salvaged means to rescue or save something from a bad situation. It wasn't the romantic dinner I'd planned, but sitting on the floor amidst the flour and broken whisk, eating pizza and laughing with Sarah, was actually perfect. A perfectly imperfect evening.
That's a wonderful story. It shows that sometimes, the best moments are the unplanned ones. And you learned some new words along the way. Culinary, baffled, infectious, release, and salvaged are all excellent additions to your vocabulary. They are words that you can use in many different situations. Remember them.
Okay, let's recap the story so far. Remember, recap means to summarize. I was trying to impress my date, Sarah, by cooking a fancy Italian dinner. I chose a complicated lasagna recipe, ambitious, perhaps a little too ambitious for a beginner cook like myself.
And ambitious means you were aiming high, trying to do something challenging. But things didn't go quite as planned, did they? The lasagna ended up burnt on top, practically raw in the middle, and the garlic bread, well, let's just say it resembled charcoal.
It was a disaster, a complete culinary catastrophe. Culinary relates to cooking, of course. The smoke detector went off, the kitchen was a mess, and I was ready to give up. I thought I'd completely ruined the evening.
But Sarah, being the wonderful person she is, didn't let the disaster get her down. Instead, she suggested we order pizza, a much safer option. And she even started laughing about the whole smoky situation. She has a great sense of humor, doesn't she?
She really does. She pointed out that the smoke detector was just doing its job and that burnt lasagna is a pretty common cooking mishap. Mishap means a small accident or an unlucky event. It happens. We opened the windows, aired out the apartment, and waited for the pizza.
And while we waited, we shared stories about other kitchen disasters we'd experienced. I told her about the time I tried to bake a cake and it exploded in the oven. It was quite a mess. It turned out I'd used baking soda instead of baking powder. They sound similar, but they work very differently in baking.
We laughed so much that night. The burnt lasagna, the smoky apartment, the whole disaster, it became a funny memory. And, honestly, it made me appreciate Sarah even more. She showed me that it's okay to make mistakes, and sometimes, those mistakes can lead to the best laughs.
Exactly. It wasn't the romantic Italian dinner I had planned, but it was a memorable evening, filled with laughter and genuine connection. Sometimes, embracing the unexpected can be more rewarding than sticking to the original plan. And that's the story of my cooking disaster.
Thanks for listening to English Boost. Remember, practice a little every day and you'll see big results. See you in the next episode.